was quizzical, studied pataphysical science in the home. Late nights all alone. Joan was quizzical, studied pataphysical science in the home. Late nights all alone.
Hello, friends and family. We're giving you just the good old elementary school 5-minute warning till the transition. So any snacks that you need at the last second, in about 5 minutes, we'll begin our program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. I may be the one of the few people here without a name tag. So in case you don't know, I'm Aaron Stadler, the number 2 son, number 3 kid of Ann Stadler, we are here today to celebrate. And we hope you have been enjoying our food. I wanted to give a few thank yous out to old friends of the family and Ann's, Nancy Main and Geraldine Brousseau, who were our chefs for this event. Let's take them. We want to thank all of the helpers that have participated with setting this up. They are all of Ann's children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. There's something like 25 of us here. So a round of applause for them, doing all the decorations and everything. And we have got, we chose this place because it has been a part of our family for many, many years. This is where we came to spend our summers swimming in Lake Washington, playing on the swings and stuff. And then this building itself, Anne celebrated her 64th birthday and her 70th birthdays right here in this building. Some of you may have been here for that. She sang When I'm 64 with a band, and I think we were right after that asked to stop the music and because things were getting too loud. But over the last few months, I have been combing through a lot of video and photo albums and having one heck of a trip, remembering things, realizing things that I didn't know before about her and her life and the people she met and all that. And the organizations that she worked with and dedicated and donated her time to. And one of the things I came across was this group called Storybridge that she spent some time with. Peggy Holman is here. Peggy, I don't see you right now, but I know you're here somewhere. Was there with her. And anyway, I noticed that this was something that actually I was hired to videotape and way overshot, like I always do on just about everything I work on. So when it came to going back and looking at things, there was just hours and hours of material. But I accidentally, the one clip that I clicked on was this blessing that I termed it as a blessing, where she got up in front of the group, and talked about the space they were in and how special it was, and she wanted everybody to realize that the space itself had stories to tell and had seen and experienced things. And so I thought it would be good to start us off with that video and use that as our blessing of this space. So we will hopefully...
is a sacred place. Over the many, many years that this place has existed, there have been these conversations, other conversations, celebrations, memorials, wrestling, whatever the community really wanted to have. And I feel like I felt very inspired today by the place itself, knowing I'm in this place that has held communities for so long. So I just want to make sure we...
So that's our opening word from Anne, and so I think it's now time for me to introduce the next generation of Annie, and her sister Sharon, who will be our MCs for the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for that introduction. And just a huge moment of gratitude For Aaron for helping with all this technological support and the rental of this place. Let's give him a big round of applause. You definitely deserve that, Aaron. Well, my sister Sharon and I will be your MCs today, and we'll kind of be going back and forth so that we can each also enjoy parts of this entire ceremony. And so today we're going to begin this day, and we're going to start with the children of Anne. So as many of you know, Anne had 4 children. She had 9 grandchildren, and she had 17 great-grandchildren. I know, quite a lady. And my dad, Mike Stadler, the very firstborn, is the one who most of those great-grandchildren have all come from. So, just to be honest there. So, Mike Stadler, we are going to invite you up to tell what you'd like to talk about. Let's welcome Mike Stadler.
No, I think I'll be okay. Just, well, as you know, I think as most of us agree, the English, I'm using the English wording for a mother, which is, as you know, is spelled a little differently and pronounced a little different, mum, but we don't want to be mum, right? Mum is not the word when we're talking about Anne Stadler, because there's a lot of things to talk about my mom. And so we don't want to be mum, but at the same time, we know there's lots of people that want to speak. It's a large program. So I've been advised to be brief in what I say. So I'm going to try and be succinct, brief, concise, to the point. Oh. I'm already blowing it, but no. But anyway, as I can, as it could easily be pointed out, as that now maligned comic Bill Cosby once said, he said, I started out as a child. And as all of us, I also started out as a child. And of course, it could honestly be said, I would not be here were it not for Anne Stadler. But in the same vein, I could say I would not be here were it not for my grandmother, etc., my great-grandmother. But as we go back through the generations, a little bit on the serious side, as we go back through the generations, we get to a beginning of all this, and in other words, I would not be here because of. Anyway, I just thought, because also my mother also believed in an other entity, in other words, in something we don't see, but nevertheless exists. In that vein, I thought it would be appropriate if we did a very short sort of benediction today. A very short benediction to preface everything, to preface what we're going to say on this blessed day. And an angel, she was a human being, but let us remember many of her beautiful positive traits. Let us also remember anything worthy of laughter or worthy of joy on this day. So, speaking now speaking now in what I saw in my mother as sort of a duality. She had a very lovely duality in that even though she could be very serious about something, she could also be given to laughing or giving to comedy at the same thing. A case in point being when she was very involved in the World Without War Council. She was very involved in the World Without War Council in the mid-60s. But one day she spent the whole afternoon with Lucy Dougal dreaming up other names for the council and just having a very fun time, full of laughs, talking about the World Without Issues Council, and generally just having a great time in that way. She loved comedy, even though, as I say, she was very serious about anti-war and especially anti-nuclear war. She loved the movie Dr. Strangelove. She loved the Marx Brothers. She loved Charlie Chaplin. And she also taught, I think, all of us in the family to be very comfortable with laughing at ourselves, which is a very useful trait as we are seeing, especially in these days when prominent people seem to be lacking that ability at times. But yeah, she really helping me to think analytically. I was in ninth grade. I was in ninth grade, and I liked history. I was able to get A's, and I was quite interested in history, but it was always multiple choice. It was always, fill in the blanks, things like that. But then one day the teacher just started was asking us questions, and what do you really think about the war in Vietnam? Do you really think we should be there? And what do you think about this? And what do you think about? And there was hardly any answers from anyone. There was hardly any participation from anyone that day. Afterward, the professor said to me in sort of a confidence, he said, the problem with kids nowadays is they don't know how to think. They don't know how to think. And that always, I was impacted by that. I was impacted by that, not totally sure yet what it was to think. But with my mom, as time went on, we had some beautiful talks in which we thought a lot. I remember reading the book A Separate Peace by John Knowles in, I think it was June, in my 10th grade year. And my mom, when she heard I'd read it and I had gotten enthralled by it and very involved in reading it, she went ahead and read the whole book so she could talk with me about the book. And I remember a ferry ride, not a short ferry ride, but I think it was the ferry ride going from Vancouver Island across, which is about an hour and a half. And the whole ferry ride, we were talking about the book and I felt such a satisfaction that I'd never felt before after talking with her about what this character meant, what the different things that were being approached in the book. And she was teaching me how to look critically at things analytically, which later would also help me in making my choices in my life. It kept me from being led, it helped me to detect hypocrisy in other people, to detect when a person was, although they said something, they were not acting upon the same thing, because Mom's credo was always, yes, you can have 1,000 words, but if you don't act, they don't value for anything. So, but all that time after she was injured, she was very careful. She was very careful not to put any blame on me. She was very careful not to not to make me feel guilty in any way of what had happened and to downplay the injury she had. And that, I think, I know in many situations she had a selflessness that went beyond just being a mother. That's what I have to say about her, too.
Thank you, Mike, Father. We'd like to, oh, sorry. I wanted to get my back of my head. I thought that would be a better spot. I'm just kidding. Now we're going to move on to, thank you, Uncle Matt. It's a team.
Well, unlike my brother Mike, who remembers everything, I spent most of my childhood at a track meet, apparently. And so many things happened without my strong awareness. I do remember being a very small child, and we had tiny kittens. We were living in California, and the kittens climbed so high up in some tree or bush and cried pitifully, and I was so worried about them. It might have been 3. And she and I had matching blue checked gingham shifts, Easter dresses, and I was just so proud to be like my mom. We had lots of years where we had fairly separate parallel lives, where we would weave back and forth who was learning about experiential learning first and talking about it with the other the next time, or multiple intelligences. We were lucky we could carry heavy things and they could pay the bills. But I think my fondest memories, because they're so recent, are the good fortune of having a mom almost make it to 93, so that I'm almost 70, so that we really are adults getting to know what it's like to be totally thrilled. If you've ever seen Ann Stadler eat an oyster, you know pure pleasure. If you've ever been with Ann Stadler when she couldn't get her goddamn lots and lots and lots of other bad words socks on because her body was so difficult and so tired and so sore. It's amazing what her mouth could come up with, though. You know, and I think there are many of us who have that combination of admiration and love and a little bit scared of that person's temper, a little bit scared about what she might, what might happen if you did leave the house in as much of a mess as it was 15 minutes before she was coming home. We were, you saw Team Stadler in action here, and that we learned that partly because we knew we better get things cleaned up before she came home, or it would be really upsetting for her, and we'd hear about it. So for me to get to the point where I could hear that rage at the unfairness and soreness of the old body and not run away, not pull back, but just be there with her in that moment of frustration, that's such a gift. So I'll tell you one last little story. So Mom, what a worn body. She she was pretty sure she didn't have any use for all of that Western medicine for such a long time. And so her heart and lungs got pretty worn out before the doctors ever, before she collapsed enough that the doctors got to say to her, you have some pretty serious issues here. And what was I gonna say? My brain just went to a track meet. Oh, I remember. So we ended up spending some time together in a rehab facility, a place where she was recovering from a pelvic fracture. And she needed to learn how to walk again, and she needed to learn how to get on and off of the toilet. She needed to learn how to get in and out of the bed so that we could get home to be where she wanted to be, so she could heal and spend another 10 years doing all sorts of adventures. And we had our ups and downs. I say we because I was there quite a bit, and the boys were there. Mike wasn't up yet, but we were all in touch with her. And I got there one day, and the rehab people, the occupational and the physical therapists, said, you probably should talk with her. She's not wanting to do any of the therapies today. And so I went in, and she was on strike. Everybody here is trying to just get me to do things and putting on these sappy, syrupy faces, and how are we today, and blah, blah, blah. There's just not a one of them that cares anything about anything, and I'm not going to do any of it. I don't know why, but I thought I should argue with her. I thought I should try and tell her what to do. So finally I just said, I know, I can't tell you what to do. I know that. And it seems to me when I came back and got sent on some other errand, she said, well, as I was on my way out to do the errand, I decided to go to physical therapy today. I don't have anything else to do. So that's it for me for now. I'm going to share a little poem about her later, but why say we? I miss her. I feel so lucky to have had all that time to be an adult with her as an adult and make our mistakes and learn from them and love each other. So glad you're all here to share this with us.
Wow. Well, thank you, Aunt Sue, for that. And yes, it was such a big blessing, I think, for so many of us to experience Anne as adults. Some of us got to experience her as children, and then teenagers, and then adults. And that was just so much. I agree with you on that satisfaction. Next, we have our Uncle Aaron. And as he's mentioned, he is the second son of Anne and Dave, and the third child. And let's welcome Aaron Stadler.
Okay, I didn't plan anything because I wanted to listen to what Mike and Sue had to say, so I took notes. I have thought about one thing, though, that I was reminded of with this space, and you guys may remember this too. We could time her all the time. She was exactly an hour late for everything. And so she would say, I will pick you up at 5 o'clock tonight. And we would swim till 6. and walk right out in the parking lot, and she'd just be pulling in. Just perfect timing. So the difference in my relationship with her, what my siblings have experienced, is I got to be her neighbor for the last, her direct neighbor for the last 12 years, but lived very close to her. I had a house here in Lake Forest Park that was about 10 blocks away. And so I became a person of a lot of trades and helping. I was her IT person. I was her shopper. I'd go down the store to pick up things for her. Or she'd realize that I was off at the store, and I'd be walking out of the store with my 3 bags of groceries, and my phone would beep, and here would be this list. While you're there, could you pick up? But one of the very special times was actually COVID, when things shut down in 2020. We supported each other and became each other's best company. And we started this routine where every Friday we would do a takeout dinner from some, support some local place, and then we would pick a movie to watch together. And it got to be, like I say, every single Friday. And so we would do these themes. At one point, we watched Beckett, Lion in Winter. Well, okay, now we're on a King Henry theme. So then we watched King, or the King that the new one that was about one of the Henrys. And then we watched another one, and we would go till we ran out of those. And then we'd try to figure out, okay, we're watching Peter O'Toole movies now, so we'd go on that for a while. And then she would keep busy a lot during the day. She had joined a bunch of different Zoom groups to, stay connected with what's going on with other people. And one was a group where she was, as I understood, by far the oldest person in the group, maybe by 2 or 3 times. It was more like a group of younger college age or middle-aged adults. And so at dinner one night, we were having dinner, and she was talking about this, and she goes, "Oh, by the way, so have you ever heard of this person named Darth Vader?" It's like, "Well, you mean Darth Vader from Star Wars?" "Oh, is that, like Captain Kirk?" And no, that's Star Trek. So we started watching the Star Wars movies. She became so interested and connected to what the Force was, because to her that had existed for years, and she had been practicing it for a long time, and then became very interested in George Lucas and the things he was doing. And so we got her, I remember that Christmas, we got her a T-shirt that says, "The Force is," or "I am one with the Force is in me." And it really does describe very clearly a lot of the spiritual strength that she possessed. The other thing she loved to watch is sports. And I particularly like to watch soccer, so she became a huge soccer fan and would join me for soccer games. And, well, why did he miss the ball? And they said offsides. He didn't. It's not like offsides in football. And so it would be, going through this whole thing of explaining. But a lot of fun. Now I think I'm joining you at the track meet. Yeah. So the thing, though, with her, as I was saying too about the Zoom, is the whole thing about connections. I had a video that I found just the other day, which was actually a interview that I did many years ago. I decided to interview my mother to tell her story up to the point where she meets my father, and then my father telling his story up to the point where he meets his soon-to-be wife. and then have the two of them together talking about the rest of their lives together and raising a family. So I went back and I was looking at some of this stuff, and I came across a thing where she talks about, I asked her about her mom's death and her sister's death, because these were two big moments in her life that really hit her emotion. I really wanted to share this because it is really profound, that she was able to handle it because of the quality of friendships, or the quality of the relationship that she had with them, and had the same with my dad. And that because of that, she was, really, again, I wish that this was something I could share, because I don't think I'm saying the words for it. But it just helped her very much through those tough times. But it also taught her and opened her eyes from then on, after these things had happened, about that is so important to, whenever you're in a relationship with somebody, to give it every bit of attention and focus and make it as full as possible. And she really did practice that. I think she's one of the few people that in the restaurant that, because she can't hear what you're saying, she will be distracted by it. But relationships were were definitely a thing that I think she was really skilled at and taught me a lot about. I want to close with a story, though. Another part of her relationship to people was her hospitality. And for those of you that would go to her house for a talk or for lunch or whatever, there was always treats and drinks, usually lots of desserts. But there was never a time where you weren't offered something. And that's something that I feel like I don't do well enough. You might get a glass of water at my house, but I don't know that I'd get you a piece of cake or pie or something. So we went back to England in 2012. We were on the 50th anniversary of the year that our family lived in England when our dad was on a sabbatical. And we went back to the town where we were living in to see if we could find the house that we lived in. And the route we took to get there was to go through this commons area that the backyard of the house bordered, climb up this hill, almost like a scramble up this hill, and come out into the bushes, through the bushes of the backyard of this place, hoping that we recognize it and nobody's home. And so the decision was made. It was myself with my two kids, who at that time I think were about 7 or 8, I think, or 2012, so they would have been 12 or 11. And then Mike had his youngest son, and Matt was there with his son, or his daughter, and then our mother was there. So the decision was made, send the old lady and the youngest kids first. And the rest of us will stay in the bushes and see what happens. So Anne goes through the bushes with my kids, and I think Miko also. And there's a little time goes by, we don't hear anything, and finally we come up through the bushes. And there in the backyard with the owners of the house chatting away, the owners are about to offer cookies and tea, and she had started the relationship. And it turned out to be the house that we had lived in 1962, thanks to our brother Mike's navigational memory. That's all I got for you. Thanks. I miss her very much, but I feel her presence here today.
Thank you, Erin. Now we're going to move on to Ann Stadler's youngest son that we're so happy to have here today, writer Matthew Stadler.
Sharon. Yeah, I was waiting for it. Sue, it's your turn now. Yeah. Perfect. There we go. I think I can be heard now. In this family, it's good to be the youngest. You always get a lot of help. It is really a family of helpers, all the way down to the great-grandkids. This sense of being in a place that was so nicely invoked at the start by Anne. I mean, you could see it in her face when she's gesturing into the room, and to feel that we are here. She really had that capacity to communicate feeling. This room was very different 5 hours ago. And the great-grandkids and grandkids, and even the children of Ann Stadler, have made it a space full of her, what she's given us, and space now full of the people who she has brought together. I look at faces I know from my own life where either you crossed paths with my mom from her work, separately from knowing me somewhere, or I got to know you in my life because she drew so many different worlds and people in, with exactly what Erin was describing, the moment of arriving, instead of having all sorts of screens and hesitations and forms, instead has this sudden invitation, and often a very willful invitation. Not just welcome, but what are you bringing? And I remember a couple stories from that gathering online in December, which was such a beautiful gathering. I had never thought Zoom could be as intimate and connecting a space as I felt on those 2 days. Almost everyone I heard were people I didn't know before. But there was one recollection from someone who might be here tonight about a day of meetings and of talk and of that kind of energy that Anne has had and has, at the very end of which they both zoomed right to each other and said, "Who are you? Why are we meeting? What is it? What have we started here?" You know, the beginnings are always just full of the future. I'm pleased to say I feel that right now, too. I feel as though the future, in that sense of, because we are in her spirit and in that space of faces together, it feels very much like futures. And we all, my God, we're carrying so many burdens into these futures. Part of the impact of being together again, so our dad died in 2007, and many of you were at a gathering. It was up at the house quite close by. Feels like a different time now. Personally, of course, I'm now somebody both of whose parents are gone. And that really is a very new feeling, very different. But I have a feeling as we all brought this together, and as you, as Anne's community came together, we're all carrying so much stuff that we help each other with. And maybe this space has got Anne's energy in it, in which those burdens lighten a little bit. They become the source of laughter. As Mike was pointing out, so much of the energy that Anne gave had to do with how funny the worst thing was. There's a wonderful clip of her speaking about how could anything possibly go right, you know, with a big smile on her face. And it's a good summary of a lot of the magic and energy of the way she did work, is that her ability wasn't pre-planned nor manufactured at all. There was this energy in her that she was able to share person to person, which is very, very hard to do, in which the joy of the mistakes we are about to make, the joy of the chaos that we are about to go through of our own making, is palpable. It's part of the spirit and energy she brings. And it fits so well with many of the families I see from my childhood here. The Dougals, Hansons, Smiths, a short name for 4 families that was probably 6 or 8 that became 10. Adults brought together by the fight against war. You know, an incredible source for community and an enduring one. This couldn't feel more of the spirit of those times than I do now as you look at what could bring us together. My point, though, was we're all having our track meet moments. That was a setting that reflected back to her exactly that capacity for love of humanity, love of the chaos and failure that is humanity, and really embracing that rather than approaching people and saying, how could I fix you? You know, how could she, I think for all of us, her kids, and certainly I see it through this whole community, she showed up and you know, everything that could go wrong could be wonderful. It was all part and parcel of what was a joy. I have a number of anecdotes, but I think the thing I wanted to close with, the kids of Anne went first. It's an unusual group because I look at all of you and I have a sense that Anne's intimacy and her ability to really connect was so strong that although we were children and therefore in the midst of that energy in ways that you perhaps weren't, I think you know Anne as well as I know Anne. I think I can hear 10 or 12 stories from you and discover more aspects of this woman who raised me and who I knew for my entire life. She really does seem alive in that way, in that we're in the midst of discovering from each other all these dimensions of what is still alive here with us. So I'm glad I'm with you and glad Anne's with us.
Thank you so much for that, Matt. And yes, I think the dimensions, you see it in this room. It's just a part of all that Anne has done and how she's touched so many of us in different ways. And well, next we've heard from her children, her 4 wonderful children. And as I mentioned to you, she had 9 grandchildren. And we're going to start this off with her eldest grandchild, her first ever granddaughter, my sister, Sharon Billmeyer Stadler.
Hello. I'm so glad and happy that you are all here to join us today in this day to remember a beautiful life, and if you're here, it's because she touched your life or made some kind of impression or connection, and thank you for being here. I'm going to read just a quote and then some of just memories I have of my grandmother. This quote is by Antoine Bavel. Did I get that right? Because I saw it on a picture that was, "A luminous light remains where a beautiful soul has passed." It's beautiful. I saw that on a picture that we put on her bulletin. And as I was planning my trip up here with my kids up to Seattle, it was really hard to think that I wouldn't be seeing her on my visit. But it still left, it still is a little difficult not to be able to hug her and get a squeeze of the bottom from her. Boop, boop. She loved doing that, and many of you could probably agree. But her hugs were so long awaited, ooh, just full of love. I will not be able to chat with her or sing with her or story tell or which was one of my favorite things to do with her, or listen to your countless wise suggestions. So I'm going to do this in a way to her, okay? So, first person, sorry. Of advice of how to live a life full of vibrance and truth and authenticity, sorry. These were some of my favorite things to do, and I can still remember a girls' trip we took with my grandmother and my sisters to Santa Cruz not too long ago. And I had a conversation outside with her with a little bit of tea and a little light breakfast, and under the warmth of the sun, where you shared being a young girl full of curiosity and wanting eagerly to learn. I think you remember telling me a story when you were 9 or 10 years old. And just your love for learning at even that age, she knew. I mean, she just wanted to go to the library, and she would tell stories about learning how to read books, or learning more and more through reading books and checking out books at the local library. And at that moment, listening to you, I knew with that spark of light in your eyes that your love for learning is something I am very grateful that I also have, and many of you could agree too. Just when someone lights up, it's so beautiful to watch. And even though I'm 42 years old, it wasn't too long ago, so it feels just that, like, it's just a feeling of like, this is what it means to live. The spark that you see in someone's eye when they're passionate about something they love. And even more strongly, I believe that conviction of truth settled in my heart. And this woman, I remember thinking, wow, as she was talking and I'm listening to her, you're so amazing, Grandma. I get to call you grandmother. Grandmother. Mother that is grand. What an honor. You truly taught me the art and skill of actively listening and making connections with all forms of life around me. You are what I can call my Mr. Miyagi, or for the youngins, and what Aaron also talked about earlier, my Yoda. I can still recall a family game we played the last time you visited. Sorry, Grandma. I'm like first person, third, like I keep going back, sorry. We played in Redlands, her last visit, and she, I don't know, just was a random game, and we said, okay, let's make a circle, grandmas, like siblings, grandkids, and we're gonna play, what would you like your last day of life to look like? It's pretty awesome. She went first. She should have went last, because it was such a grand finale piece. But and afterwards we were hitting ourselves. Why didn't we record this? Because it was so descriptive and so good. And the best part I remember is we were all enthralled with her scenario of her last day, and the best part of it was her and Bali dancing in the waves of the ocean and looking down into her 20-year-old body. And I was like, wow, yeah, that would be nice. And wow, it was just so captivating. She had many beautiful parts in that, waking up to a day of jubilee and world peace. That stood with me too. Grandpa Dave was in there too, announcing. He was the announcer of the day of jubilee and peace. I thought that was pretty amazing too for my grandmother to include him in that piece, as though she had thought about this many times before. But what a beautiful example speaking on the behalf of the grandchildren, but I know many of them can tell their own parts, but what a beautiful example we had for an amazing woman in our life. And gives me another reason to believe in the incredible example I have and the pleasure I have to call her a grandmother, a friend, and a true advisor. So I would like to leave with this little thing I just put together, and this will be my conclusion. I want you to know, Grandma Ann, that when I paint, I'll think of you. When I take nature walks, I'll think of you. When I laugh with a deep belly and hit a certain pitch in my laughter, I'll think of you. When I take thoughtful breaths, I'll think of you. When I embrace the love of learning, I'll think of you. When I make life connections and human connections, I'll think of you. When I storytell, I'll think of you. When I sing, when I dance, when I read poetry, I'll think of you. When I acknowledge the love for my aging body, I'll think of you. I'm thinking of stories where she really took us to like camps and stuff to love our body, and I love our self-image. But I am thankful and I am grateful for the life to be able to, and when I donate or give any time to a good cause or a community, I'll think of you. I wrote so much down, and I know I'm passing my time, but I did do a little small, I'll pass a little bit of that, and I'll just read this small little poem I made. It's called The Same Cellular Luminosity. The warmth of the sun sets on your face. I hold tight to the moments we shared, the tragic and sweetness of life's pace. Time is a thief without a trace. Your 20-year-old body gleams along the glimmering ocean waves, dancing freely to the free rhythm that innately drives your spirit to the day of jubilee and freedom it craves. You and me and you, us and them and us, all in all, the same cellular luminosity that will always be one under the shining sun and the galaxy of light and love. The radiance in your eyes when we had shared our long chats of growth, and grateful for the life lessons you have, tightness to all those whose soul beats with purpose and making reality from a dream. Keep shining bright, Grandma Ann. You and me and you, us and them and us, all in all, the same cellular luminosity that will always be one under the shining sun and the galaxy of light and love. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Sharon, for all that you shared. And I think so many of her grandchildren could agree with a lot of what Sharon spoke about and that feeling that she gave each and every one of us. So thank you again for sharing that. We're going to go on to her first great-grandchild. He was the first of 17, as I mentioned earlier. And his name is Ethan, and he would like to speak a few words about Grandma Ann.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ethan. I am Grandma Ann's first great-grandchild, and I just wanted to share a little anecdote today of my most recent memory of Grandma Ann and the last time that I spoke to her up here in Seattle. So at the time, I was going through a bit of struggles in school, and I had just gotten out of a quarter where I failed my classes, and it was kind of a hard hit to me because in high school I'd always been a straight A student, or in middle school, elementary. So in college, I was kind of going through a tough time. And I remember the first thing, in the moment, I guess I didn't really take in the full gravity of that. And said to myself, well, I've always wanted to be an engineer. Maybe I know engineering's for me. And it took until after she had passed away and a quarter later where I didn't do, and I ended up taking that advice that she gave me and switching my major. And I am now doing something that I'm much more interested in, and I've gotten better results because of it. I'm more excited about what I'm doing, and I just want to say that, Grandma, you were right. You knew what was best for me, and I'm so glad that I had you to point me in the right direction, and that the fruits of your words are now showing. But yeah, thank you guys.
Now we're going to, thank you, Ethan. Now we're going to move on to Anne's 16-year-old great-granddaughter, Amaraya Yinda.
Hi, my name is Amaraya, but many of you guys know me as the Cheese Girl. I today just wanted to share a poem that was given to me from my great-grandma, Anne. I remember about a year ago, I was having a conversation with her about my interests in poems. And what I thought was just a casual conversation, when I got home about a week later, I found this book in my mailbox, which I thought was at first pretty interesting, because I was like, how would she remember? Or like, she took the time to send it and buy this book and pick the one she wanted to give me. But then I realized that it was just the way she was, and she was a very, very good listener. And yeah, so there was a poem that I picked from this book that she gave me that I'd like to read. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I had made something of my life particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. This poem in particular really resonated with me on the topic of Grandma Anne, because I think she was a perfect example of what this poem is trying to convey, and how much of an impact she's made on each and every one of us in this room, and how she's a perfect example of someone who has not just visited this world, but has affected people emotionally, physically, in every sense. And I think what as I was cutting the cheese for everyone today, I met I met her reflexologist, who was sharing with me how she only knew her for about 6 months. But in that short amount of time, she was telling me how big of an impact that Grandma Ann had had on her. And it was really beautiful to me because I think that was just, it's a perfect example of, it just shows how she was and how she was a listener, but how she was also just a fun person to talk to. And how she really, she was talking about how proud she was of us grandkids, and how each and every one of us were now going in our different paths, but she was still proud of each and every one of us and what we were deciding to do. Like my brother Ethan, who may be like the path that we think is not the one that is best for us. But I think it was just beautiful how even someone who didn't know her that long could have been affected in such a big way. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to call her my great-grandmother.
I'm gonna get a little teary-eyed here because, those last two were my children, and I'm just so blessed that they had Grandma Ann for her great-grandmother. So blessed that they got to know her like I did, and that she got to impact their lives. Our next presenter is my younger sister, Rachel, and she is the youngest of the three sisters. And she has not only some words she'd like to express, but a special presentation. So let's introduce Rachel Joaquin.
Hello, everyone. Wow, there's so much been shared, and it's so beautiful to be here today. So Grandma Ann, Ann, at the end she would say, just call me Ann, and I'm like, but you're my grandma, I gotta call you Grandma. She had this amazing way, and I'm sure we've all been witnesses of it, of Grandma holding space for us to be us. And sometimes we didn't even know what or who us was. I don't know if that makes sense, but she just paused and held that space. And I think that is, along with her active listening and just being present, is one of the beautiful qualities that she had. And growing up as a child, we got to come up here, and we got to do lots of fun things, and Grandma always sparked our creativity, and she bought us these scarves that are probably a good 25 years old or more. Well, we're about 40, right? So 40 years. I'm like 25 sounds better. I think it's about 25. So 40, wow. And so we would go down to the basement and we would perform. And we didn't know what we were gonna perform, but we would just have fun. And I remember being with Grandma. I got to be with her a couple of these last times. And I remember one time sitting on her couch and I asked her, Grandma, so what is it? Like, what is it in life that we should seek, that we should go for, that we should, like, what is, kind of like wanting to know, what's the secret, What's the secret of it? And I remember Grandma telling me, like, do whatever brings you joy. Whatever brings you joy, whatever fills you up, do that. Explore it. be curious to find out more. And now that I'm hearing, how she was just this lifelong learner and she just had that's why it was a spark, because there was such a joy. Everything she did with, and I'm just so grateful to have had her in my life for almost 40 years. And I remember this performance that I'm going to do today, it's very much on a healing journey I was going through a couple years ago. I had felt like I had lost myself. I had felt that I didn't really know myself. I had lost a connection with myself. And even though Grandma didn't tell me, she never told me, but she held that space for me to be able to discover, for me to be able to go even further in my healing journey, in my self-love journey, in my acceptance of my forgiveness, of my compassion, and just be in awe with kind of this who Rachel is. And so in my spiritual journey, I would say that she held that space so that I could find who she always saw all along, this little Rachel growing up, but that I had felt that I had lost over the years. So this performance is kind of that, so I'm gonna try not to, but anyways, that is it, and I'll do that. Thank you so much.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Ooh, oh, you say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong when I think I'm weak. And you say I'm held when I am falling short. And when I don't belong, oh, you say I am yours. You'll have every failure, God. You'll have every victory. Ooh, you say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong when I think I am weak. You say I am held when I am falling short, when I don't belong. Oh, you say I'm yours, and I believe. Oh, I believe what you say of me. I believe. Oh, I believe. Yes, I believe what you say of me. I
Of Anne's, and we're going to go to a video from Dr. Bill, who really wanted to be here today, but decided it was best for him not to be here because his wife had recently got COVID, and he wanted to make sure that, you know, play it safe. So he is a lifelong friend and family doctor of Anne's. He is close to Anne, along with his partner Susie Tedesco, who was also a colleague and TV producer with Anne. So we will hear a video reading from him.
Hello, my name is Bill Appleton, and I have covered Anne as a dear friend for many, many years. And I was privileged to be her physician for many of those years. I first met her in the late 1970s. I was a family doctor at Group Health Northgate. Anne came in to see me as a patient, and we had a wonderful conversation, and I immediately realized here's somebody I'd like to know better. And during our conversation, I realized that Anne was a TV producer at King TV, and I mentioned the fact that my wife, Suzanne Tedesco, was also a TV producer at KCTS. So Anne put those dots together, and it wasn't too long before we received our first invitation to the Stadler home in Lake Forest Park. Now, as you know, there are dressings and potlucks and sing-alongs and caroling and birthday parties and costume parties, on and on. And all these things were marked by several qualities. There was music, food, friends, fun, family, love, and ping pong. We loved those gatherings. Now, Anne and David were mentors to Susie and me, whether they knew it or not. We wanted to be like them. We wanted to live in a home that welcomed everyone with wide open arms, to be surrounded by this multi-generational group of friends and family. We attended a somber gathering 17 years ago at the Stadler House, and that was to celebrate the life of another remarkable human being, David Stadler. Anne and Dave were a most extraordinary couple, and I know it was incredibly difficult when Anne lost Dave, but she managed to go on, and life continued. And a lot of that life was involving family. So Anne and Dave had 4 wonderful children, as you know. They also had 9 grandchildren and 17 great-grandchildren. And I remember one point, maybe 3 years ago, there was a gathering in the summer of many of these grandchildren and great-grandchildren at the Stadler house. And I was sitting with Anne, and she was pointing out each of these children as they ran by in whatever chaotic game they were playing. And she described each one with such specificity and love. They meant so, so very much to her. Family. So I've also been thinking a lot about Anne's life, which was just extraordinary, how much she managed to accomplish in those 92 years. Son Matt, wrote a really marvelous and moving obituary after Anne's passing some months ago. And he detailed so many of the extraordinary movements, organizations, communities, people, projects that Anne had been involved with over all of her lifetime. Just extraordinary. Among was her curiosity. I remember every time that we would come together to have a talk and I'd be visiting, Anne would always open with a question, usually something like, "So what are you thinking about these days? What's on your mind?" But then when you started speaking, she would listen so intently and so deeply, you knew that she was absorbing every thought and every word. And then she would often give a follow-up question like, "So have you thought about this?" Or, "You know who you should meet?" We've all heard that. So then she'd go on to the next step of the project, which was connecting the people and the resources, and she made things happen. Now, I had the enormous privilege of caring for Anne and Dave, and also Mike, Sue, Matt, and Aaron from time to time. And Anne tolerated Western medicine, which is what I was practicing, but she also knew a lot about other ways to achieve good health. And I remember one time she'd had a cardiac event, and I suggested, maybe you ought to think about going on a statin drug. And she respectfully replied, "Well, I think I'm going to go with red yeast rice," which turned out to be the perfect alternative. I learned a lot about healthcare from Anne. Now, I know as we age, all of us have some fear about our physical and mental decline. But Anne escaped a lot of that. She certainly declined physically, as we all do, but mentally she stayed so engaged and passionate and interested in life up to the very end. And what a perfect closure she had to that long, wonderful life. To be surrounded by her loving children who sang her into whatever is next. Who could ask for more than that? Now, I definitely continue to feel Anne's presence in my own life. And I think it's sort of like starlight. If we look up into the night sky, many of the stars that we're looking at have long ago vanished, burned up. But the light and energy that they generated continues on through the universe forever. And it was very much like Anne. She truly lives on through all of us who knew her and loved her, because knowing her changed all of us in some wonderful way. And that energy, that bountiful love that Anne radiated is still there. So Anne, I love you and I miss you.
That love is definitely radiating. And friends, to conclude this first half, or this first part, next I would like to welcome her grandchildren and great-grandchildren and many of the partners of her grandchildren to a choral presentation. Please enjoy. so grateful to have all of you and joining in like that. We want to mention that as the next intermission will be a dessert intermission, as Anne would have definitely had that on the schedule. And so we invite you to dessert, and then we will ask everyone to come back for our second half. And we want to also mention that someone's cell phone has, oh, we have found it.
It's been found.
Okay.
But you will know it's time to come back because you'll start to hear folk singing for a sing-along, a very brief sing-along. So when you hear us start to sing, please come on back to your seats with your desserts.
And you will find those songbooks right on your seat so that you can follow along and sing along and join us.
what kind of songs should we sing to God this week back here? Oh, how about an anti-war song? Let me think what key. Let's be in the key of C. That sounds good. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. I'm gonna study war no more. Here we go a little faster. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I'm gonna talk with that Prince of Peace down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna talk with the Prince of Peace down by the riverside. I'm gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Well, come on back to your seats and join us for a short sing-along. Come on. Last night I had the strangest dream, a favorite of Anne's, all about ending war. Little bit of waltz time, so come on back to your seat, and you've got words on your chair. We've got a few more speakers coming up. Kia G.
We gave them too much sweets and they're all scattered.
Last, the strangest dream I ever dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. I dreamed I saw a mighty room. The room was full of men and women, and the paper they were signing said, "We'll never fight again." And when those papers all were signed and 1,000,000 copies made, they all joined hands and bowed their heads, and grateful prayers were prayed. And the people in the streets below were dancing round and round, and swords and guns and uniforms were scattered on the ground. Last night I had the strangest dream I ever dreamed before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. Good job, sing-alongers. Come on inside out there. We're going to have one more sing-along song. Maybe, Nick, you could let the outside people know? come back to your seats. We got another song. This song is, Ann Stadler had one of those conversations with somebody she'd never met before in the hospital. Oh, about 28 hours before she died. About 28 hours before Ann Stadler died in Swedish hospital in room 11, which was our room for 36 hours or so, a doctor came in to say to her, you know, Ann, we've done everything really well. We've done the tests we need to do. We've got the therapies begun in a timely manner. Everything on our end is going well. And I need to say to you that I'm just not sure if your body is going to be able to do it. And so I think we need to talk about if this is time for you to be moving on, if this is the time that your body says, I'm done, what your wishes are. And she and that doctor had one of Ann Stadler's deep dive conversations about life and death and his beginnings in the practice of medicine and his work in San Francisco, and 25, 30 minutes of long, deep dive conversation about life and death. And what she wanted, if it was her time, was for her kids to be there, for us to sing the songs, the old songs like we're doing right now, and for her death to be natural. So she got her wish. We all got there. We sang the old songs. Mike kept us going, kept looking in his phone for the lyrics. Brother Mike, who remembers everything. And one of the songs we sang is one of our old family favorites, Smiths, Dougals, Hansons, Graves, Nash, everybody. When I'm on my journey. So let's sing When I'm on my journey, and that'll be a way to welcome back our speakers who are going to tell a few more stories about Ann Stadler. Key of C. And I hope you will all sing with us. It's a folk song, so once you've heard one line, you know the next 3 or 4. When I'm on my journey, don't you weep after me. When I'm on my journey, don't you weep after me. When I'm on my journey, don't you weep after me. I don't want you to weep after me. Every lonely river must go home to the sea. Every lonely river must go home to the sea. Every lonely river must go home to the sea. I don't want you to weep after me. Oh, high up on that mountain, leave your sorrows down below. High up on that mountain, leave your sorrows down below. High up on that mountain, leave your sorrows down below. I don't want you to weep after me. And when those stars are falling and the thunder starts to roll, when the stars are falling and the thunder starts to roll, when the stars are falling and the thunder starts to roll, I don't want you to weep after me. Because when I'm on my journey, don't you weep after me. When I'm on my journey, don't you weep after me. When I'm on my journey, don't you weep after me. I don't want you to weep after me. Okay. Well, I'm going to welcome our MC back up because we have a number of old friends to share a few stories. Thank you, Gary, on drum, and Keith on the bass, and Norma Jean on the piano.
Yes, again, thank you to all our musicians for that wonderful intermission folk music. I want to just make an announcement real quick that if any of you notice these little containers in the back on the table, there are still several of them there. These are the ashes of Anne, and they are for each person to take. So that you can take and spread wherever you feel inspired to spread them. Now, if you want, I think my Aunt Sue mentioned to me earlier, you may want to have a nice long conversation, go on a date with Anne, and then spread them and feel inspired wherever you want to spread those. So feel free to take those containers. They're in the back there, and they, again, are the ashes of Anne Elizabeth Morgan Stadler. We have so many people who we know have so many stories to share about Anne. And so due to time in this second half, we are going to ask that people be a little more brief, but we are excited to continue to pass the torch on to the different friends and family of Anne Stadler's. And I would like to introduce to you our next speaker. Sorry, one moment. Here we go. Our next speaker, he met Anne in 1989 when she came to India. And since then, from that moment, they connected immediately. Our friend Prasad Kaipa, he says that Anne had just left her job at King 5, and he had left his job with Apple. And he got to be present there at the very first open space that she co-led in India. So please help me give a warm welcome to Prasad Kaipa, all the way from India.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you very much. Yeah, I met Anne in Goa, as she mentioned, in 1989. September 28th. That's the day I remember. At lunch, we had met for the first time. I used to live in San Jose, and I still continue to, but travel quite a bit. But we met and we had lunch. She came and said, "Are you okay if I give you a hug?" And of course, I said, "Fine." And she hugged me and said, "Where were you all this time?" And at that time, I adopted her as my American mother. So pretty much she stayed till a month before she passed. I had been waiting for an invite to come and see her for past 3-4 years. You know, she was saying, "Not now, I have guests coming, something else is happening," but and of course the COVID time. And she told me about a month before she passed on, she said, "Okay, book your ticket, let's meet." And then she was telling, "It looks like you have really come home." And there were several years we were looking at. She comes to San Jose, she meets with my wife and myself. We talked about all this time. She was saying, because I came from computer field, I was in Apple. She said, "You know, just like one of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren said," she kept on saying, "You need to find what actually speaks to you." So when we came back from the conference, it was just before Aaron's marriage, and she was preparing. She said, "I just left King 5 TV, and then I was struggling whether to leave Apple." She said, "If it speaks to you, seek joy. If you think leaving Apple gives you more joy, you should do that." And that's what I did. I essentially, within a month after, we met, pretty much I decided I'm going to leave. She said, "Hey, I'm leaving King 5 TV. We both will look at what the next steps we need to take." We both got into this open space, that journey of which I started with her in organization development. Pretty much I'm continuing to do even now. So in some respect, she introduced me and partnered with me in a new field that I had no idea about. And we journeyed, we learned together, and all along the way, first she came to me for technical advice because I was from Apple, you see. So she says, Prasad, this is not working. You know, it's like she's so fierce on the phone, you can just feel that energy and say, fix it. I said, Anne, I can't see what is on your computer. But you are a genius, you can fix it, fix it. So it was interesting conversations about that. And variety of things. We did a lot of things together. There was something called process psychology she was very much involved in. Joe Goodbread, Arnie Mindell, several of them in the early 90s. And when I was talking about learning theory and frameworks for learning, she introduced and said, the framework which you came up with is perfect for process psychology. And she introduced me to Amy and Arnie and Joe Goodbread, and we took it to some place. And then David and myself became table tennis partners. So we used to play a lot of table tennis. And there was a conference Anne and I and David, all of us went to in Yachats. And that became very intense. Several of us had very deep emotional experiences. So it was like Anne and David took me to beach, and I was like really in a very traumatic state. They were both holding me up and saying, just be there, it's okay. So, you know, it was like, that is when David, not just the Anne became my adopted mom, David became my father. And actually it was very interesting that I was in India when David passed. Within 10 minutes, I just called and said, how is David? So it was, we had a deep connection, and Anne was like really appreciative of that. And in the sense like we connected, and the Anne kept on guiding a variety of ways and various new fields. She's like fearless in exploring. I don't need to know anything. I feel that. If I feel it, that is where I need to go. And trust yourself, trust your heart. Go where your heart speaks. Those are some of the messages that I really got from Anne. And she was also very disruptive in my life. And I have a feeling in many people's life. Only problem was, despite her serious disruption, she does it so lovingly, she does it so caringly. You don't know that being with Anne is dangerous to your way of living. That was something that I felt many, many times. Whenever I felt I needed some guidance, suddenly there will be a call. Hey, I heard about service space happening in your San Jose. Can I come and stay with you? Can you introduce me to all your friends? Or Fetzer Institute, 5 years ago, we had a gathering about spiritual seekers. Even in her late 80s, she kept on finding communities that she can be part of. And she invited me 1 year before, the B community. And she said, can you be in this? We need to keep doing, because we can't just keep quiet. The world will die if we keep quiet. That was the kind of a song that she was saying. So I'm really grateful today being one of the representatives from India, because many of us in India love her very, very dearly. So my brother Anil could not be here, and there are so many people, Lata Vaidyanathan, Anil. So, you know, there are so many of us. We wanted to be here, but I'm really glad I could make it. And thank you for inviting me. And Anne is in our hearts. We don't miss her ever, because it's like whenever we think about a problem which we can't go beyond, we ask ourselves, what would Anne say? And what would Anne do? Next thing we know, we get up the chair and keep moving in that direction. So thank you, Anne, for the guidance. And thank you very much for, you know, lighting up all our lives. Bye.
Thank you so much. Our next guest is a close family friend from the late 1950s and is part of the circle of families that met through the anti-war activism. Annick Smith, let's welcome her.
Am I part of the family? Do I get mic adjustment? It's sort of like the Three Stooges. Anyway, I had some things written down. I'm going to shorten up everything. But, before Sue shoots me with this thing. That's fine, I guess. Is it okay? All right. Well, I met Ann and Dave Stadler, if you can believe it, in 1959. My husband, Dave Smith, was a young lawyer at the time, and he was head of the Seattle Young Democrats. And Ann had just formed Platform for Peace, and we were doing a political rally, and Dave asked Ann if she would come to speak. We had never seen her or met her. So Ann came, and Dave came along, and it was like love at first sight. We were very young. We had very young children. We were ambitious, attractive, and Dave and I were kind of lonely because we didn't know anybody in Seattle. We'd only been there a couple of years. And so Ann and Dave invited us to come to a dance party. And off we went to Lake Forest Park, and things were never the same. We danced, we laughed, we talked, we laughed, we ate, we laughed, we sang, we laughed, and we met Bill Dougal and Lucy Dougal at that party. And the six of us then became a unit. We became a circle, and our families became conjoined. It was like we were one big, young, raucous, crazy family. And we did all kinds of things together. And there were other people who kind of joined that circle: Bill and Alan Hansen, Dave Nash, Dick Levin, eventually Pat Graves, and there were more. But that was kind of a core group of we called ourselves the Magnificent Seven. We went on death marches on Olympic Peninsula. We had endless dance parties where everybody got smashed on rum and lime juice and very cheap wine. We went to the seashore. We did all kinds of things together. And then finally, as things happen, your lives go on and you drift apart. And Dave and I went to Montana, and the rest of them stayed here in Seattle. But we kept making the trips back and forth for Christmases, Thanksgivings, Memorial Day parties up on my ranch. The Stadlers came and with their little kids helped us build a log house, a recycled log house. The Dougals came and they also helped us build that log house. And even though as we got older and our kids got older, we sort of went different ways, we stayed together. And right up to the last, I would come to Seattle for every year or so and stay with Ann in the little house above the garage. And we would pick up exactly where we left off. And it was as though no time had passed and that we had not really gotten any older, although of course, God damn it, we have been. We're much older. In fact, I'm kind of, with Dave Nash, I'm the last one standing. But you know, Ann and Lucy and I were kind of a triumvirate. We called ourselves the Three Stooges. And we spent wonderful times together, and often at the seashore at La Push. And I miss both of them very much, but I know that sometimes the Three Stooges became the Three Furies, and sometimes we were the Three Fates. And you know what? The Stooges are dancing, and the Fates are dancing too.
Thank you so much, Anik, for that. We appreciate it. And we also love hearing about how connected the three families were. We know that we got to know a lot of the stories about those three families. So thank you for sharing what you did share. Next, we have a very special guest as well with us today. And this guest is Mr. Emery Bundy. Now, Mr. Emery Bundy ran King 5 TV public affairs programs, and in the early 1970s, he hired Ann Stadler, who had never worked in TV before. So let's welcome Mr. Emery Bundy.
Public Affairs had a small department at King, and I'd been there a couple of years and survived, which was very unlikely at the outset. And I had a position open, and I'd become acquainted with Ann, and some of the things that were mentioned before it, I was on at least the fringes of, and would be at the events with Dick Levin and do singing and celebrating and families getting together. At any rate, this position was open, and I was aware of Ann's work within the World Without War Council, and I thought the sort of spirit and way of engaging people that she had experienced was something that we could use. And as I was contemplating, or pretty much had decided on this, I was paid a visit by the CEO of King Broadcasting, and in rather strong and colorful terms advised me that that would be a very bad idea to hire her. And I wasn't quite sure of the particular reasons, and I said, well, I certainly won't do anything without really looking into it. And so I did talk at length, and the previous speaker will probably know, well, now I'm having one of these, Jim Wilson. And I did speak with him, and he, as I expected, had nothing but compliments. And so I didn't speak with the president anymore. He just learned that this had happened and that it was done. And it took several decades, but I think someday he was thought well of it, but not immediately. At any rate, what distinctive we had done, we really tried to engage the community in our work. I mean, you can put out this signal that will go to hundreds of thousands of people, but what's the interaction between what you're doing and what they're doing? And so we were, searching all the time for ways to do work that had a constituency that was interested in it. And Ann was, a good person to do that. And so, I should mention Sue Stewart is another person who has a history at King that is of similar length to Ann's. At any rate, we had nothing, I think, but on our own terms, successes. We worked hard. We did engage people. Ann early on had one program called People Power. And we'd have people from, church communities, from political parties, from civic groups, from neighborhood associations, from ethnic groups, and try to involve them in exploring the topic and seeking some interaction with the public. And it was hard work, and we didn't have brilliant successes at every turn, but we did have progress. And then we started discovering that when we entered national competitions in television work, we were perpetual winners, and other people elsewhere would be impressed with the things that we had engaged. And then I'm going to tell just one personal story and then end, because I've got too many things that I could relate. That one of the things that I'm really, really grateful for is Ann became, my, what's the word that I want, anchor? I went through, after being married for over 20 years, an unexpected, unanticipated divorce. And I was just absolutely devastated by this. And if you can be a baby about such things, well, I did it in spades. And Anne was kind of picked me up and covered for me and gave me things to read. She had advised me to get a counselor, which I threw the cards away because I didn't think that that would be helpful to me. And the day came when one of the things that I'd been reading spoke to me, and I thought, I'm really in trouble, and I'm just being a baby about it. And I don't mean it all happened then, but it started then. And well, to mention one example, this counselor said, you really ought to be engaging with other people. You know, you're being kind of very isolated about everything. And I thought she was talking about dating, and I just didn't feel like that was something that I wanted to be a participant. And she said, no, I mean, I'm talking about, could be recreation, I mean, whatever. I had I had lunch with my soccer buddies, which we get together monthly. We've played together for 30-some years. I started as the oldest player by about a decade on the team, had to learn how to play the game. And this has become, one of the most meaningful set of relationships in my life. And people bail each other out. There have been times when there have been civic and other events and opportunities, and that this is really a wonderful group to be associated with. A second thing, and I'll stop with this, is that I followed the advice to try to learn more about my childhood and my family. And, it's just like one of the knock your socks off. I mean, I learned that my family history, my father's history was just so at variance with what we'd always learned. I mean, he spent most of his childhood in an orphanage. We never heard that before. He then was a farmhand for a couple of years from an uncle that he didn't like to be working for, and somehow worked his way through high school and college and went on from there. I mean, in a fabulous way, but also, leaving some markings behind of what he'd been through. At any rate, Anne's, really changed my life in a lot of ways, and that's among them. And when I left King, one of the things that I did, well, I had set things up, so I thought Anne would become the head of public affairs. That's what I had recommended. And I think it was a terrible mistake that she wasn't. However, she always, advanced with everything, and she became one of the key figures in Seattle. Seattle became a paragon of contact and constructive association with the Soviet Union. There was no community in the United States that compared with Seattle. If you look at just the number of people who got visas and passes to go, it was more than I think it literally was more than the whole rest of the country combined in all sorts of likes, puppetry, singing, and politics, just all sorts of things. Then we ultimately got into the Goodwill Games, which was a critical thing, and Anne had a role in that all along the way, and we were really, really lucky to have this time with her. At any rate, I could go on, and I better not, but at any rate, it's nice to be here, and I've been really touched by some of the things we've been hearing, and at one point, kind of got so broke up about it, I thought I'd have to stop. At any rate, nice to see you, and thank you to the family.
Well, we want to thank you, Emery, for being here and being present today. And of course, you continue to remind us of that trend of how much Anne's impact not only was for that moment, but for years to come. And a lot of times we didn't notice the impact until after looking back on it. So thank you so much again for being here. We appreciate you. Next, we have a speaker who is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's best known for the book Your Money or Your Life. And she knew Anne and she appreciated her, especially phase. Please help me welcome Vicki Robin.
Hi, it's super special to have been invited to speak today. It's that time in life when you start to speak at more and more memorials, you know, it's like, and each one, I thought I was the most special person to the person who had died. And then I found out that everybody had that feeling. And so I'm having that experience again tonight, or this afternoon. I don't know, I sort of think my claim to fame with Anne is the fact that I probably did one of the last recorded interviews with her before she died. I didn't know that. I had a podcast, which I may have again, called What Could Possibly Go Right, which is Anne's theme song. And at the end, I thought, I don't know what's going to go right, but I want to speak to the older women that I admire and just sort of get on record what they have to say. So my comments are going to involve a few quotes from that. And you can go on resilience.org, find what could possibly go right if you want to hear the whole thing. So one of the quotes from that interview is, when I was asking her, like, what's the important things, Anne? You know, we really want to know what to do in this life. She said, those little initiatives that somebody did and thought of, and they worked, and they kind of spread through the telegraph. So anyway, that's guided me along. And there was Anne, because she wasn't interested in anything that was like from 0 to 60, like ordinary to glorious. You know, she was interested in the thing that was at hand and that was trying to be born. And so when, way before Your Money, Your Life, we had a tape course, and I was like passionate about spreading the word about consumerism. And somebody introduced me to Anne. I remember coming down very strongly on the stairs of King, and she said that nonprofit corporations could have these PSAs, that there was time allotted for that. And so I was like, I'm on it, you know. So I think I recorded several of those. I just figured out how to do it. And that was really, you know, she noticing us gave power to what we were doing. And then eventually the book came along, which has sold many, many copies. Another thing from that interview is she said, we live in an emergent reality. We're creating the future all the time, or we're being drawn into it. We're not creating, it's co-creating, but we're being drawn into that field. And it reminded me of a time, I think I was in quite a few of the circles where Anne was promoting circles about something, some higher purpose. And one of those circles, and I can even see where it was, she was at the end of the room, and everybody had a chance to talk about what was real for us in that moment. And she said, I think she was about 70, she said, I feel like I'm being drawn along in the current. I feel like my toes are just sort of like touching the bottom. I don't really need to do much. I'm just in the current. And that stuck with me. Like, that's an aspiration for me, to let go of my tremendous intentionality and allow the current to carry me. And then, so I came by, and she had just gotten herself little pastries that she loved, and so she halved them so I could have half. And this is the quote that reminds me of that moment. She said, basically, love is the guiding force. Love is the thing that's pulling us forward. Take responsibility for what you love, and follow that the whole time you're living, that you're working with other people. And we talked about my early explorations in consciousness, and how I was with a group of people, and we were using alternative substances, we were like isolated, and we would sit in circle, and we would feel like, we called it the voice within. We were listening for something that we called the true note. And I was telling her those stories, and she said, yes, that's exactly it. And I'm sure many of you know about fluency, that she was working with that sense of just simply moment by moment listening to what was emergent and going with it. So, yeah, that's what I want to share about my dear friend Anne. And I'm so happy to be here and hear all these other stories and be woven into the bigger story.
What a pleasure to have you. Thank you for sharing. We're going to go next to is a Reiki practitioner. That's right? Am I saying? Yeah, Norma Jean Young, who was a close friend with Grandma Ann and who was also worked with healing with Grandpa Dave using, am I saying the name right? Reiki? Oh, Mike Stadler too. Let's give her a round of applause.
Short. There we go, there we go. Oh, my. To have not only Ann Stadler drop her body, but another very, very great being spirit who Ann loved, Susan Osborne. And I feel such a closeness with both of them. I happened to be listening to Datura, Susan Osborne's, one of her first recordings, for weeks on end before she passed. And then when Anne passed, this song is very present. Wonder if I should get some water. There it is. Thanks, honey. So, with fluency, offering open space to both these spirits, here it goes. Lay down your burden. Oh, lay it all down. Pass the glass between you and drink it up. Place the light before you. Come through the door. The dragon doesn't live here anymore. Sing with the choirs that surround you and dance to music in your soul and look into the eyes that really see you and place all that you have into that bowl. Rejoice for the love that brought you near us. Set sail unto the ocean of your dreams, and do not fear the
Just listen to the voice that calls you, that all these tales of paradise are true.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much again, Norma Jane Young. We appreciate you being here with us today. Next, we have a woman named Cecile Thomas, and Cecile Thomas says that Grandma was someone she considered, Grandma Ann, sorry, was someone she considered her spiritual mother. Please help me welcome Cecile Thomas.
It's so yummy to be here. She loved that word. Meeting Anne's eyes for the first time was coming home, a home rich in unconditional love, life, laughter. I had asked a dear friend, Anne Tillery, I want to meet someone who aligns their daily work with their spiritual work. And she said, you must meet Anne Stadler. And so the adventure began. I met a sharp intellect, an eagle eye, a dragon force, dangerous to be by, a fiery heart, a lot of yumminess. We explored, worked, sat, created, and cooked together. We laughed and cried. She taught me to listen and stay in reality, starting from within and walking in a circle. She introduced me to her friends. For each of us present today, there are so many more, touched by her love, her passion for peace. She walked her talk. Honest about her shortcomings, she was quick to uncover my blind spots. She lit my fire. Her wisdom came from the heart, listening to the source, no recipe book, no stale doctrine, pragmatic, actionable, and well supported by a commendable amount of chocolate and pie. After her passing, I missed her eyes, and soon I heard this inner voice, Schnooks, you got this. Show up. Closer than ever, her spirit is here, hearts. Love is a spirit, compact of fire, she quoted from Shakespeare. It seems quite natural that we celebrate a fiery heart on the eve of St. John's Day, lighting of fires, fires of warmth, of life, of the spiritual light of love. For generations, fires have brought us together in circles of community, first as we are, just as we are here today, to celebrate her spirit. Her love binds us and dances alive in each one of us. I will be forever grateful.
And it spoke to me when you said, Schnooks, you got this, because that's definitely what Grandma would have said and what she's still saying. So thank you for reminding us of that. All right, our next speaker, thank you everyone, and we appreciate you being concise so that others can get an opportunity to share, because we know there's so many that want to still have that opportunity. We have our next speaker, Lucy Moll, and when I heard about her story, did she have to leave? Okay, I will just tell her story though, real quick, because it was so great. Matt was giving me the bios on everyone to help me prepare, and thank you, Uncle Matt. And he had mentioned, and I know she wanted to speak, she didn't get to speak, but Lucy Moll was someone who had gotten her first job in TV as a high school student when Anne Stadler hired her to recite her oratory, The Bicentennial. So it was like a poem that she had written on a King 5 program, and it was the start of a long career in television for her. So she was here but can no longer be with us. She had to leave. She was going to speak. So I'm going to move on to our next speaker. But thank you again, Lucy Moll, for being here. And adult, Linda got to know Anne, beginning with Anne's ongoing friendship with Linda's mom, Carol Roman, who we all dearly love and appreciated. So please help me welcome Linda Roman.
I think it's okay. First, I just want to say to Mike that my mother adored your daughters, and she saw them every time they came to Seattle. And you know who you are. So I remember when Dave and Ann first came to Seattle. I was 15, and it was 1956, and Dave was bringing his new wife. No one had met her, but we'd heard about her. We knew she was a shiksa, and we knew she was blonde and blue-eyed, but we weren't prepared for this woman who came. We were so excited. She was lively, she was beautiful, she was bold, and she was opinionated. She loved to laugh, and she was not the typical faculty wife. And she took on my dad, which no one did, but she did. The next thing I remember about Anne was that Anne, and I think you guys too, were in England. Were you born yet? When she was active in the Ban the Bond movement? Yeah, okay. And that really impressed me because it meant that you could act on and be outspoken about your opinions. And I think for me, she really was, what do you call that when she was a role model for me. So when I was becoming an activist in Seattle and later in the Bay Area, Anne was already entrenched in her life's work building community. She made frequent trips to India and was involved in international work. I was doing anti-racist work here, and my friends Silny Domingo and Jean Viernes were murdered in their union hall by agents of the Marcos dictatorship. Do you remember that? And Anne was very supportive of me during that period and was unqualified in her support of my activism, which I really appreciated because it was very helpful. When Dave was getting sicker, he and Anne would drop by my mom's on their way home from the doctor, and when I was in town, I would join them. There was so much love between those three. My mother had known Dave when he was, I think, a teenager, because she knew his dad, who was my father's mentor in genetics, so that my mom knew the whole family, the kids and his parents, and Louis and his wife, whose name I don't know. So that was a very important time in her life, and she really cherished Dave. Everyone played an instrument. They had a little orchestra at their house, and my dad didn't play anything, so he was the director. Since Dave's death, Mom and Anne often watched Mariners games together, and they enjoyed each other's company so much. Anne was at my mom's 90th birthday party, along with Ethel and Piera, dear friends of ours who flew in from Paris to celebrate. And not long ago, Anne called me in Oakland and asked me to take some persimmons from my tree to Gus Newport, the former mayor of Berkeley. And recently we've been emailing a lot about Gus because of his untimely death. He died. He shouldn't have died and did, and it was very painful for Anne. So these are just scattered memories of my life, of Anne in my life, and I'm beginning to realize how much she influenced me to become my own woman. and how much her unconditional love has given me support and approval in all of my professional and political activities. And then I have to say something from my sister Anne, who's also here. She always felt wrapped in Anne's arms. This is my sister I'm talking about now. Their times together in recent years ranged from marching in the Women's March in 2017 wearing pussy hats to taking in a rain soccer game to enjoying a bit of food and a chat. This past September, through an email exchange with Anne, my sister was delighted to learn that Anne's favorite ice cream flavors were caramel and lemon from the Fainting Goat. So Anne went to the Fainting Goat and brought her ice cream. That was only a few weeks before she died, so she was very happy to be able to do that.
We are so honored to have you, Linda, with us here, and representing also Carol and Hirsch Roman, who we love very much, Miss Carol Roman, of course. And we remember, us grandkids remember, and some of the children will remember, those high teas with Carol Roman, and no one did it better than Miss Carol Roman. Well, next I'm going to introduce you as we're coming to the end, and hopefully the beginning of a few moments of open mic for those who want to say a few things. But I'm going to introduce you one more time to my Aunt Sue, who has a beautiful poem that she would like to recite. Give her a round of applause.
Please. Ta-da! Okay. Well, doing what you love, I love words. And so I've been taking a few poetry classes. And they're all just only a month long. And the first one was poems about food. And so this morning I thought, I have lost all my marbles. I'm at a track meet. I can't remember anything I want to say. So I better pull out something written down so I can have something to say. And so this is one of my poems from the food class. It's called a recipe poem, so it's written in the form of a recipe. Birthday dinner, March 7th, 2024. 1 part diner food, 2 parts locavore, leaning toward healthy, turkey meatloaf, don't hold the bacon. Equal parts monitor and adjust as we rely on memory for inspiration. Does meatloaf have carrots? She'd want carrots. This says crushed saltines, but we have panko from her cupboard. 2 pounds ground turkey, generous dollops of mustard and tomato paste, 1 egg or 2, what would she do? A generous cup of chopped celery sautéed with onion, seasoned with thyme and rosemary from the garden. Dump the lot in the bowl, that old chipped green Fiestaware bowl. Squish and squeeze together by hand, pat into a bread pan, cover with bacon and ketchup, and bake at 350 until done. Serve each of us a slice with steamed broccoli and a small baked potato. Save plenty of room for tapioca pudding. Happy birthday, Mom. We miss you.
That was really lovely, Sue. I could imagine us putting all the ingredients together and just doing it with love and joy on the day that she was born. Now we have Annie, my sister, would like to also recite a poem.
Well, thank you all for letting me have a moment as well here. I couldn't think of a better poem to recite than the one that Grandma, that's written on here in the program. So I'm going to recite this one. Uncle Aaron found it up in her house on the wall, I believe laminated. And this poem has spoken to me in a lot of different ways, but also as I was printing these programs at a dear colleague's house of mine the other day who was dealing with something in her family, she said, "It's such a blessing that I got to print these because I needed to read this poem." And it was so special. So I'm going to read it and then just say a few words. Now, yes, let us go boldly into the unknown, serving the North Star of thy will be done. Living, I am the change I see in the world. Singing and dancing, welcoming whoever comes, learning that yes and showing up is enough. Generating abundance for all, guided by love in action, open-handed, open-hearted, open-minded. Confident we are the radiant presence of the new story in the new world. Ann Stadler, 2004. And I wanted to share just a few words in my journal that I wrote right after my grandma passed away. I really felt like I needed to get it out, so I put it into my journal, and I just wanted to read it to everyone today. And this is what I wrote. I am deeply honored and tremendously grateful for the blessing to have been born into this family. To have Ann Morgan Stadler for a grandma, a dear friend, my greatest cheerleader, a great mentor and teacher in my life. I attribute a huge part of who I am to the compassionate, spiritual, and thoughtful person she was in my life. I feel you close, Grandma, and I want you to know that I am continuing to pay attention. She listened and paid so much attention so as to know what exactly the right question was to ask or advice to give. You made me, and coincidentally everyone else, feel that we were each the most important person. She is with me, and I hope to be like her when I grow up. That was... So... Thank you all for being with us today. It's not over. She opened this circle and she will end this circle. She will close it. But we wanted to give about 10, we have about 10 extra minutes, maybe 15, to an open mic moment for anyone who's felt inspired during the entire program, or they just felt like they'd like to come up and say one memory or something. We ask that you be brief, but we want to allow for this open time as well for anyone who feels inspired. And the mic is open.
I'm Steve Smith. I'm Onyx Smith's son that came up and said she met this Dave and Ann in 1959. So our families did grow up together. Their kids are about the same age as my old brother and me. First starting sophomore year in high school, and Ann and Dave offered their home for me to live and go to high school at Shorecrest with Aaron, who was a year ahead of me. And she liked my cornbread, and she said if there wasn't too much sugar, but I wonder if we could have behaved better. But you know, like I said, that love never quit, I wonder in terms of what her doctor said about there's a special spiritual dome over their house. I can tell you, I don't know if you believe in
spirits, both good and bad, in that realm. But I wondered if they were jealous. We go to the Stadlers in '71 at Christmas. We came in a bobcat ate all of our chickens in Montana, lived and took up residence in the chicken coop, eating one a day. And then in '73, we were in LA and came up to join them for Christmas, and somebody broke into our apartment and stole a bunch of stuff while we were gone. So I was like, oh, but it was safe at Stadler's.
Hi, my name's Glenn. I know Anne because she was the mother of my friend, Matthew Stadler, who was a high school friend, so I went to their house. It was a different kind of family, and it was an attractive family to be at. And so she was the mother of my friend for a long time, and then later in life, I think we became friends. And I will skip all through that just to the point, which is that about 4 years ago, my mother died. I had a lot of grief. It was hard to talk about it to anybody. I wanted to talk about it, but it was very difficult to share that grief, to bring that grief to another person. Shortly after, I was at Anne's, and she looked at me, and I don't remember the exact words, but she wanted to know about the pain. She cared about the person in front of her. She was not afraid of the pain. She saw it as an opportunity to be with that person. So, thank you, Anne.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you. So we're just a small portion of the community in Lake Forest Park, and I thought we should say some of the things of how Anne has impacted our community as well as personally. I'll start a little bit. We can just take a little turn. First of all, I went to school with Matt. Hi, Matt. And it's funny how you get older. Oh, and my dad worked with Emory, right? Frank Yamasaki. And so I'm sure that there's probably connections with other people as I heard these stories, like maybe McDonald Hogan Bayless with you. I don't know. Anyway, it was fun to hear about what that period in time was like. It was incredible, the people who came before us and worked so hard for peace. So I wasn't going to talk so much about all these things, but as you get older, I found that I became friends with your mother. Oh no, I'm going to get emotional. And when I moved away from Lake Forest Park and I came back to new things that were going on, I didn't always understand the politics behind it or just all the issues with it. And so I would climb up. I felt like I was always going up the hill, first driving, and then up to her apartment to get perspective. And she always had a way of sharing it and helping me through with guidance of a way to look at it. And I think, Natalie, we could talk about one of the little incidences, right? Come on over, about the CLTs when we were just sitting at the town center.
Yeah, so we just went at the Third Place Book. No, it's okay. I can adjust. So we were at Third Place Book having coffee, and the two of us and Donna. And then Anne comes by, and we just start to talk about what could we do after an effort for creating a beautiful forest park in Lake Forest Park, the 5-acre wood, which Anne was really so helpful to me, where I could go and there was no politics or nothing. I could just have some.
You can explain what 5-acre wood is.
A 5-acre woods is a park, the last big forest in Lake Forest Park that was saved and created as a public park that the city owns. So I could go to Anne and she would whisper words of encouragement in my mind when I was leading it. So it was after that, and we meet her at Third Place Book, And then somehow she planted the seed that our next project should be to look at accessible housing in Lake Forest Park. Yeah, the community land trust. And she opened up all her address book of contacts she had of people doing the work, and we start to have monthly, or more than that, more often meetings to discuss it. And so that was one of our emanation. Anne had many, many emanations. That was just before COVID too. So it took a certain direction that was realistic for Lake Forest Park. But I also got to know her the first time ever when she was a consultant and helped Francis McHugh and others created a Hugo House, which is a community literary center for writers and people who want to write. And it's still, to this date, holding in Capitol Hill. So Anne was really involved in so many ways of our community. Yeah, you would. You introduced your mom, probably. Yeah. And then one tiny little thing, she was really, really fierce as a person. And a project I have of writing about how white segregate. And she, again, opened up, and I still have her emails that I will go back to look at, like all those who came before and looked at this and can serve as, for us who are more new on the path and want to learn. So she offers that continuity and what already existed at some point in the community. And in the last year, she asked me to be her acupuncturist, and to be honest, I also experienced her fierceness and how love can be fierce. And Anne definitely had that, so, okay.
Hi, my name is Celia Sodal. My husband and I moved to Lake Forest Park almost 20 years ago. We moved from Belltown, where I had gone to graduate school in UW, and we were looking for a community to raise our son, who was 3 months old at the time. And I didn't know much about Seattle or the surrounding area, and so we were looking everywhere. But what we knew was that we didn't want to move to just some nameless suburb somewhere. And so we looked at a house in Lake Forest Park, and yeah, it was a pretty nice house, it was a good place. And then we made our way down to the town center and thought, oh, well, okay, we'll see what this is like. And we walked in, and I stood there, and there was this beautiful space, this gathering space. There was the bookstore there, Honey Bear Bakery, decorations on the walls, and then this wonderful gathering space, tables, people meeting, people having coffee together, kids playing. And I thought, this is the place. And it sealed the deal. And the person responsible for that place is Anne. So from that point on, I kept hearing about this Anne who helped create this place. And she had been in line at Honey Bear Bakery, ended up talking with Ron Scherer, who was the founder of Third Place Books. And of course, it was Anne who said, this place needs something. Let's, what can we figure out together? And so she created it. And hearing that story and being in the space and knowing that this was the place, the community I wanted to spend time and spend my time and energy in, I joined the board for Friends of Third Place Commons and have had the privilege to work with Erin on the board there for many years. And I feel so privileged to be here today because I'm in the midst of onboarding to become the director of Third Place Commons. So it's so experiencing, being here today, hearing the stories, her legacy is so strong here in this community, and it's really a privilege to hear the stories today. So thank you.
Hi, Hi, I'm Connie Barnes, and I just want to thank everyone today for all of that they have shared, whether it be music or voice or singing, and certainly heartfelt memories of dear Anne. And I just, I'm not someone who, sadly, did not know her very well, but I do remember going to her home. I think it was around the Community Land Trust meetings, and one thing I remember is not only that did she offer us some food, it might have been a grape or a little half of a vegetable or something, but how she, if you had something to say, she always sort of leaned into you and listened, and everybody today just made her spirit come alive, and she's here today. She will always be, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for taking up that opportunity with the open mic. And if there's anyone who still has something they want to say, find one of the children, share a memory. I'm sure they would love to hear it. They'd love to hear that, you know, something came to your mind during the celebration. We thank you all for being here. It has been an honor to come together to celebrate the life of Anne Morgan Stadler. It's a huge honor. And we want to end, well, we want to let her close this circle today with, I believe this was a video of her and a blessing that she was reciting at La Push. Enjoy.
Thank you, God, for most this amazing day. Spirits of trees and a blue, true dream of the sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings, and of the gay, great, happening, illimitably earth. How could tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing any lifted from the know of all nothing, human, merely being, doubt imaginable, unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes open. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, God.
So thank you all for coming. We do have the big house available if you want a little leftover cheese up there. And certainly a few Stadlers to say hello to you. It's been a long, wonderful day. Thank you all for being part of it.